been revised with the recent policy enforcement of Microsoft certifications, where it has become 50%, but yet it adds value when it comes to the free the giveaways that Microsoft gives upon your the commitments you are made. That's all about attending some events, and I'll explain you what they are. So to kickstart this, it's all about the certifications and becoming certified. It actually a dream come true moment for many or not, because earning a certification those days, it was quite hectic in terms of preparing for the certifications and accommodating all the learning aspects, references, and then sitting for the exams. But again, um, yet the same is going to be for today, but in terms of resources, in terms of the platform that Microsoft has evolved, it has become much easier. And again, you'll be able to easily set up your foundation journey starting from AZ900. So the reason why we encourage and why we must be encouraged by many or not to become certified, because infrastructure wise, if you take Azure, there is an in the I mean that evolves in a better pathway than the other cloud providers. So the Azure and its services are at peak. So when it comes to the cloud adoption, so you must be having a thorough understanding of all the services. So the certifications will help to prepare yourself and keep yourself up to date when it comes to learning these services foundationally, as well as to make yourself comfortable for that specific role what you're going to associate with. Because if you want to be an administrator, for sure you'll have to have the foundation plus Azure administration with the hands-on, and again the readiness to do the cloud operations. So if you want to be a developer, yes, there is another aspect of learning the foundations and learning the core development the skills, and thereby to epitomize like how best you will be a good developer associated with Azure services. So the portfolio is big in terms of the services. For that, you should be, preparing. You should be learning for or becoming certified, as well as for proving that you know the technology. So the learning aspect is has been made easy by Microsoft. So that we will be able to see in due course in this session. So the next thing is the Azure opportunities, where there are wide variety of opportunities and the vast area in terms of the job. I mean, when it comes to the job markets, we'll be able to explore and identify uh, the Azure involved job roles, because if you take 10 out of 10, probably 5 or 6 will definitely be with the Azure's requirements embedded with. So that is how, even if we take the digital team, so we've been catering the clients, those who are Microsoft shops, like, they've been having the portfolio mainly on Microsoft. And again, when it comes to the cloud, and many are not with the Azure. So that's again one insight I will be able to share, because when more you have the learning and expedited, so more you'll be able to, be a bubbly character in this industry to become eligible for any Azure career opportunity. Lastly, the highest pay ever, it happens for Azure, even the global markets. Uh, if you take the key roles, indeed is the best site, or the Glassdoor, if you refer, we'll be able to understand how the pay scale is in terms of the Azure certified roles, and there you'll be able to be satisfied with the journey that you are going to start, or that you have already started. So those who are in the journey of Microsoft certification, so I wish them good luck, to be more productive in terms of proceeding further, and they hit the goals what they prefer. So this is why uh, we always give priority for uh, for giving the best in terms of learning, in terms of the encouraging the individuals to become certified. So before we touch upon this fundamental and the Azure administrative, so just wanted to highlight the roadmap how Microsoft has defined. So starting from fundamentals, earlier it was only Azure Fundamental. Now they have extracted the subject matter of the AI foundations and the data foundations into two separate fundamentals. So that you can see in the left and the right. So pointed by number 2. So the starting point will be the foundation. So those who prefer to move forward, where the administration, developer, and the database administrations, the foundation fundamental would be sufficient, then you can choose your right path, and up until the expert levels like the architect and the DevOps. So when it comes to the AI, as your security engineering, or the data science and the data engineering, and this is how your hierarchy sits as of today. So starting from fundamentals, associate, and expert, and those three are the hierarchical the points where your certification journey will start and moving forward. But today's topic is all about to keep you accelerated for starting with the fundamentals if you have not as of today, and then move with the administrator. So the AZ900 core topics and the references. This slide particularly, I just captured the domain areas, what this certification uh, looks for. If you take this start point, so you will be able to see what how Microsoft has defined the domain areas which you need to cover in terms of upskilling your the skill set for sitting for the examination of AZ900. So the cloud concepts, then the cloud solutions and the management tools. Because when you work with the cloud, you need to understand the cloud concept, whether it is a public cloud, whether it is a private cloud, or whether the requirement is a hybrid cloud, like the mix of a private and a public. And again, the benefits of doing a value proposition with that particular cloud concept, and the compute, the options that you get within that cloud. Only VMs, or there are serverless aspects. So these could be some, technical jargons, and again some new terms for you all. But when you learn from the fundamentals, it will become much easier to understand what these terms are. Then Microsoft talk about the core solutions and the management tools, because if you have access to Azure, it's all about accessing through a portal. And again, you can be accessing through a CLI, which means a command line base, or SDKs if you are a developer. So that is how the accessibility and the tool specific the approach Microsoft has defined. Then when you work with the platform, when you work with the platforms or these tools and the utilities, your identity is important in terms of authenticating you, in terms of authorizing you for those services. So where the identity and the governance and the compliance aspects of the Azure are going to be learned in this AZ900. So those three are the skill set, and you'll be learning the services, because when you are inside Azure, not just a VM, but there are other services like platform as a service, software as a service. And when it comes to the containers, container as a service is also there. And if you don't want a VM to be available readily, or if you don't want it to be deployed, and if you want just that execution to be done, so you can be execute just the code which is going to be the function as a service. So those terms will be learned under the services. Then it's all about another a data center that you do not see physically, but you are entertaining or interacting that through a portal, which is the virtual network that you have hosted in the cloud. So that is all about the cloud networking, and in that the security. So it's all like when it comes to your physical data center, you will be providing atmosphere for the security, and you'll be having a fine-tuned network. Similarly, you will be doing the same, but for someone else's computer, which we can which we can call the cloud as of, and you'll be able to provide the security and the networking for that. Last but not least, the cost is important, because this is someone else's hosting service we are getting as a cloud provider. But the cost is important, how best we can fine tune, and what are the areas where we can understand the cost. Because first thing, we need to understand what the cost is. Then we have to understand what is the term we're going to associate with the cost. Are we going to pay on demand? Are we going to have sort of a reservation? Are we going to give some commitment to Microsoft saying, yes, we can commit you this much hours, and if so, we stand for a discount? What are the other alternatives where we can stand for discounts and optimize the bill of material? So these are the advanced areas when it comes to administration. So you'll be we're working on these terms. But when it comes to the fundamental, you will be understanding service level agreement of all the services, and how to understand uh, the uh, the cost behind each and every services. So in order to learn all these, what I thought was, because I'll be sharing these links in due course and during the demo as well. So you can choose the self-paced learning path, which is given by Microsoft. And I would like to request individuals, when you're going to try this the self-paced learning, please sign in using your Outlook, or if you have an Outlook account. If you don't have, create it, because that Outlook account can be used for this learning the path, as well as for your transcript building and the certifications profile. So which those will be the topics we will be trying to cover in upcoming sessions. I mean, how you can be setting up your transcript, and how you can be seeking how you can be scheduling for an exam, and Pearson, how they help for the proctor base and the physically presented in the exams. But for the time being, just make sure that you have an Outlook account, and sign in for that, and you can start learning. So each and every module that you're going to complete, and you will be adding points to your profile, so which will be important, and I will mention why it is important at the end of this slide, because there is one area where your points will definitely be acknowledged, and you'll be getting some benefits. So I'll highlight that during that time. So there is one area where you can kick off by subscribing to the self-paced learning. And other than that, this exam readiness zone, those are the videos, the references that Microsoft has been updating since 2014. And the Azure Friday is an initiative that Microsoft kicked start, if I'm not mistaken, in 2016. Up until today, they have been maintaining this repository with all the tech talks that they have every Friday. It happens, so you will be able to filter to the oldest or to the middle level or any layer where you feel comfortable, and you'll be able to browse and learn. So I'll make sure to give all these links to you all, so you'll be able to specifically filter out the learnings for this AZ900. And the other best approach is for learning. Uh, Being interactive is going to be the Q&A. So you can take part in the Q&A under Microsoft Docs, where you will be finding the individuals, those who have contributed, being certified and being I mean non-certified as well, but yet still fine. There will be accepted answers, so you'll be able to involve rather seeking the dumps and the other aspects to expedite. But this will be the best approach, because you will be learning the core theory, and you will be having a proper justifications from the community vet answers that will be given under this Q&A. And lastly, you can still be familiar with the community support. That is something beyond the learning when it comes to your a developer aspects of a testing or any dev work, or any non-prod or any simulations. The community support will be there. So those are the key areas, like I have felt in terms of expediting and having the thorough learning, but yet you will have to put an effort, I would say, because when it comes to going through the documentations, because you should be having that sequence, where you have started and what is the next the module you're going to cover. So you have to complete that, and in between, even you have some the gray areas, you will be able to go through the video aspects, or else you can still seek the assistance via this Microsoft the Q&A plus the community support. But to make your journey easy, and as one of the giveaways that I can give you today is this particular course in Udemy. When it comes to this, you don't want to pay a single penny. It's about 1 hour and 47 minutes, roughly 2 hours. You can use your personal email, and I would request to use the same email that you're going to use for your modules in terms of learning. Use the same, and you can subscribe to this program. This particular course is free and it's up to date. I had recommended this to many or not, those who have gone through and they have set for the exam, and yes, it has become successive because the learning is effective, and every aspect has been explained uh, I mean, with a structure, so the sequence, what needs to be looked in when it comes to the learning of AZ900. So I'll make sure to give this link as well, so you will be able to subscribe and get the maximum out of it. Moving forward, if assuming you are done with AZ900, so if there are individuals in today's the Connect, those who are done with AZ900, so I would request them to look into the AZ104, because that sets the path to the cloud operations and the cloud engineering, being an Azure certified administrator. You're not yet an architect, but when it comes to the administration, so end-to-end administration, so it's all about your skill set that you have built on top of this the learning path called AZ104. If I tell you a little bit about the history of this 104, it started with an exam called 7533. That was the first Azure Administrator exam in 2016. Luckily, I did, and I got through. It was a beta version. Then Microsoft restructured that, and when it comes to other domain areas, they have covered almost all the aspects. So that's why I have just mentioned the link for all the documents here. So documents, and reading those uh, important, because latest update and what's new in each domain area will be helpful to keep yourself up to date, as well as to not to feel surprised when it comes to a lab exercise in the exam, or else any a scenario based questions when it comes, because a case study is going to be the challenging aspect in your exam, not the MCQs, not even the labs, because the lab, if you do the sequential the steps, even if you don't complete, since let's assume you are supposed to create, I mean, you have been requested to create a VPN gateway and then do the interconnection. So you create the VPN gateway, set it up in a way, though the implementation is halfway through if the lab is turned off, but you will still be eligible for the full marks as per the experience. And again, some community discussions, it goes on. But when it comes to the scenario based, you should be having the thorough understanding of that product. So because if that interconnects within that scenario, the case study will be using one service in many or not places. That's where this documentation is important. So every time when I encourage my students and when I encourage the community to learn for the AZ400, the first uh, the stop point will be for the tutorials under the self-paced, and again the documentation. So because when you go inside the self-paced learning, as you can see here, you will be ending up into the documentations part, which will be uh, the uh, the the comprehensive the walkthrough of that particular service. So it will have information how it was introduced to, what is the current preview state of the subcomponents of that service, and what are the new things going to be coming in. So those will be there in, but yet the reading is the important uh, the effort you will have to put in. But other than that, if you are comfortable and if you still need some further, the clarifications, as I mentioned earlier for the AZ900, still you have, the access towards the readiness zone, and it's the list of the videos. Azure Friday will definitely be covering. Sometimes, if you're lucky enough, you'll be finding the AZ104 or the entire walkthrough. So that video will be important. So at least you can download and go through it. Then you will be able to refresh and get the highlights of all the topics that you have covered. So likewise, you have access to the Q&A and the community support. So when it comes to the domain area, comparing to the AZ900, here it's broader than the fundamentals, because here they expect the hands-on. So when you have a tenant, so when you have some objects, how you're going to control the multiple users in terms of accessing the services, right from the authentication, authorizations. If you authenticated only, you will be authorizing a person. If you are authenticated, you will be authorized. And if you authenticate someone, you will be authorizing him for XYZ, these services. And when you are doing that, so you are giving access, which will be a lifetime access. But what are the alternatives under the governance and the compliance that Microsoft has given, which is a JIT based approach, a just in time approach? For that time bound the requirement, you are going to grant ABC access type for that user. So how it can be done, what are the required licenses, which is the privilege identity management in Azure. So those are the identity and the governance, which are part of the first domain area. When it comes to the networking, yes, again, a virtual network. You have your networking experience that you have done on an on-premise setup, but when it comes to the cloud virtual network, so within that, the subnets and how to define the address space and how to have address spaces which are not overlapping, multiple virtual networks interconnecting without an overlapping, and extending the connectivity from Azure to on-prem and again on-prem to Azure, vice versa. So those are the areas we will be covering under the managing the virtual networks. And yet you will be using some security, the control mechanisms like network security group, um, application security group, and again, we'll be able to incorporate the firewall and web application firewall and the load balancing, and those are going to be working hand in hand within this virtual networking and the manageability, the part of that virtual network. So when it comes to the VM, because we are keen in terms of creating VMs, but again, once the VM is there, how we are going to associate the disks. So the disk will be something managed and unmanaged. So apart from the disks, what are the other aspects where you can bring the data and connect those repositories to that VM? So which will be the blob storage, which will be a queue storage, which will be talking to the VMs in a synchronous and in an asynchronous way. So likewise, you can pick many of services and interconnect and drive. So that is something we'll be learning under. You'll be learning under the compute as well as the storage. So when it comes to the deploying resources, so because we are pretty much comfortable, deploying those via a portal. But what if we can, automate it in a way where there are plenty of infrastructure as a code? I mean, if you know, like the Terraform is one. The infrastructure as a code which can be used to automate and a code-based deployment, and where we can bring the widgets like the Jenkins or even the Azure DevOps to build and deploy and streamline that the the development and operations together, which is called the DevOps. So which for which there is a role of AZ400 introduced by Microsoft. But again, IAC can be effectively used to automate it, not via the portal, but using some uh, infrastructure as a code and more monitoring. If you have the services up and running, how you're going to enforce the observability over the resources? Like you can set it up with Azure Monitor, and you can collect the logs and metrics and have some dashboards and extend those into SIEM or any third party, and you can leverage those logs and get the insights, so you can be a proactive as well as reactive for the services that are running. And in case of a BCPDR, where the business continuity is at most important for all the services, so how you're going to cater them? Using some Azure backup the scenarios, or you're going to use a disaster recovery mechanism, which is called the Azure Site Recovery. That is again well taught under this monitor and backup Azure resources. So those are the areas which are mainly expected from a cloud engineer, a cloud operations engineer, a cloud consultant, I would say, even before he commits himself as an architect, because he should be having a thorough administrations together with the foundation. So that's why this combination is always welcomed by many or not when they're going to kick off the certification journey and move into the next step towards the AZ 404. As I could give a as I could introduce this, Udemy, the learning, which is going to be the free, a lifetime access will be there for that, because if you subscribe time to time, that individual who is the instructor will be updating, so you'll be able to get the latest update for that. Likewise, when it comes to Microsoft Azure Administrator, there are labs that Microsoft has given, which you can be testing on your platform that you have. Because if you want to subscribe to Azure, you can simply use a credit card and subscribe, and you'll be getting $200 credit valid for 1 month. And after finishing that 200, you can you will not be charged for sure. But still, you will be able to use the freely given components in Azure that are given in that site. So you'll be able to still have access to that portal, and you can be trying these labs within those uh, repository for the Git repo. I have got the URL as well, so when I'm going to share that will be there for you all for the 104. On top of it, if you want to go beyond the hands-on, and if you want to be very solid and some dynamic approach of handling some labs, I would recommend and suggest to go ahead with this WizLab Azure Cloud Sandboxing, so which you can subscribe and you can start. This is each lab, it's about 1 to 2 hours, so max of 3 hours is there. So you'll be able to do the hands-on. That's going to be a lifetime access via this WizLab. Let's do a quick portal navigation, just to showcase like how things work and how things are there in terms of Azure. So let me. So this is how my personal Azure the login and the access to the Azure portal. So whenever you log in, you will be accessing this URL portal.azure.com, and you'll be using your username and password. So once you log in, you'll be able to see a set of services on top, and again the recent services that you have accessed. So and you'll be able to see the which account that you have used. So the primary account you're going to use for subscribing or to sign up to Azure will be the global administrator or the owner of the subscription, because you should own the platform. In that context, you should be having one account. So when you sign in, first thing you will have to go to the subscriptions and check whether you have a valid subscription. That's where you will be able to confirm that you are having an active and a valid subscription. There's a subscription ID is there. your role in terms of handling that subscriptions, or you are an account admin, same as me. I mean, if you have subscribed using that emails, and you will be able to see that current cost associated with that subscription and active state, and this will grow dynamically based on the services you're going to add and manage. So in terms of finding services, whatever you have deployed or even the new one, you'll be able to find from the search window, or you'll be able to go to the create resources and go through that the cart experience, where you'll be able to see the shopping, same like you're doing a shopping cart experience. You'll be able to see all the services here. But the best place and the preferred the approach is choosing the search uh, bar here. And I would say, let's say virtual machines. So we'll be able to go to the virtual machines. If I click on that, you'll be able to see uh, the virtual machines that I have created. If it is listing like this, then you should be able to see the virtual machines, which means in our general term, it is a PC. It's a server. So that's the name of the server. This is running in the subscription, because subscription is a kind of container. Because if you want to deploy something, there has to be a container. There has to be a subscription. So if you are subscribing to a portal, and if you want to create, let's say a resume creating a portal, you subscribe to a subscription, and then on top of it only you'll be able to build the resume, or you can build your cover letter, whatnot. You'll be able to handle and manipulate all the data. So you should have a valid and active subscription. That is what this subscription is all about. Then you have the resource group. I'll show you what it is in. And again, resourcing, you have to group the resources. You can't simply leave the resources idle, but you should be, logically group those. So where the resource group will help. And you have, the location. So the beauty behind this Azure is, it gives an option to deploy a service wherever you want. If it is a data center approach of a physical and a traditional way that we have been maintaining, we can be deploying anything within that, defined by the boundary line. So if you want to deploy in another region, in another country, or in a new jurisdictional area, you'll have to have a lengthy process of achieving those. But here it's a simple turnkey option is there, where you can deploy in many, not all the locations listed by Microsoft. And you have the operating system type. You can see here the size, because when you have a server, you will size it like in terms of CPU, RAM, storage. So the same concept, they have templated those, so you'll be able to simply pick. And the OS type, I'll be able to show that in due course, and you'll be able to have a public IP, because you should be having public IP because it's a public service. So to access that, unless you have a restricted way of accessing using the private IPs, that's a different approach when you have the interconnection between your data center and Azure. But if you have a standalone, um, independently, if you have deployed your portal, so you can find your VMs and you can connect those number of disks associated with that VM, update status. So beautiful view in terms of understanding your the core infrastructure of virtual machines and how they are. So if you want to simply create, you can go and hit on create, and we'll be able to you know uh, let's say choosing the subscription. Because if you have multiple subscriptions, you can locate that, because end of the day, subscription, as I mentioned earlier, it is um the foundational the framework, not a framework, I would say. It's a wallet where it has a binding with the billing. It has a binding with the role based access, who can get into that and start deploying. So your billing will definitely be working along with this subscription. So you have to select the right subscription, into which or on top of which we're going to deploy. So here you can choose whatever the resource group, or let's say my labs, and you'll go and put a name, my first VM. Here you can choose. I always choose Australian East. Otherwise, you'll be able to choose whatever appropriate, because when you're going to choose the region, you should be choosing appropriate where your latency is low. Don't choose something a bit far, because when you deploy, your latency will create a mess, an approach when it comes to the performance. So you should be choosing appropriate one. That's where the sizing and these architectural aspects are important. Availability zones, because if you have more than one VM, how we are going to cater the availability. So availability that you can define using the availability set, or you can let Microsoft to manage, where you're going to place the virtual machines in multiple data centers, because Microsoft is not giving you one data center and one rack and one the cables connected, the power cooling and stuff. They will be giving multiple racks and multiple data centers in one region, so multiple data centers in a discrete distance are interconnected. So that is forming an availability zone, and the zone wise, you'll be having one or two zones in one region. So that is how the global footprint of the Azure. So you'll be able to learn those when you go through the learnings. But the zones you'll be able to choose, or the self-selected, let Microsoft to choose, or else you can choose, since it is preview, we don't have access to that, but for the time being I'll choose. And uh, and and the availability zones will be able to choose like this, the zone 1 or 2. And when it comes to the security type, the trusted launch or the standard, you'll be able to design based on the requirement that the security and the compliances that sit behind the requirements that you will have. Here, the important thing to choose the virtual machines, the operating system, the image. Are you going to have the VM with the Windows 10, or are you going to have a virtual machine with the Windows Server? Likewise, here it says the same, because Microsoft has defined these instance type, which are called the SKUs. So those SKUs are defined as standard, DS1, E2S. So the performance and again the appropriate the functionality it supports are given in the documentations, but accordingly you will be able to choose what you need. And you can put a username and password. And I would say, just to show the process. Okay, so make sure that you have the right one, and you can select. You can just specify the inbound port RDP, which is to access a Windows a PC or a server, or via a remote connection, and you will be able to pick the licensing and create. So you can associate the disks as well here. So the disk, if you see the default, it comes with the premium SSD, but still you have the option to choose. You have the flexibility to choose the SSD, or even the lowest capacity you can define, encryptions, and you can have that's the OS disk. But you'll be able to add the disks, like the data disk of any number. And you can go to the network, since it's going to be the first VM. It doesn't have any virtual network, so you can create within this wizard itself. That's what the importance is, because you don't want to jump into several places. You can be creating within this wizard and associate a subnet and associate one IP address. So public IP will be used for accessing. So here you can just leave those none at the moment, but you will be able to create granular network security groups upon creating the VM as well. So lastly, the monitoring and the management, like you'll be able to incorporate the cloud, the defender from security point of view. And again, you can enable auto shutdown if you require, because these are important things, where you can have that automation focusing the cost optimization, focusing the performance efficiency, for focusing the operational excellency. If you set up a time, and there will be auto shutdown, I mean, even if you have been working from morning to evening, so if you have defined, let's say, after 6, it will shut down, and the next day morning you will be able to bring down via another automation. So that flexibility is there in terms of handling the infrastructure as a service in Azure. So the backup you can enable, and moving forward, you'll be able to add the diagnostic. Like this is all about monitoring from the infrastructure point of view. And again, if you go to the custom data, here you'll be able to put the custom script whenever you turn on the VM. That custom script will run and make sure that the configurations have been installed. So that approach can also be enabled. And you can tag, you can easily put the key value pair here to identify what this VM for and who created and what. And likewise, we'll be able to customize, and finally we'll be able to hit if everything is in place correctly. So this is one way of creating a resource. Likewise, if you go to uh, the virtual machine, I would say let's take a VM which has already been created. So this is how it will look like upon creating a virtual machine. So you'll be able to see the IP, which configurations, and here you'll be able to go to the access control, and we can give access to other users, in the sense other admins. Let's say if you are doing a project with a virtual machine, so you can extend that VM to a partner, or else to another team who's been working. So you can define which role to be given likewise, and we'll be able to see how to connect, networking aspects, other settings. So you can see the disks whatever created, and you'll be able to extend or add more the disks. And when it comes to the scalability, so you have visibility for everything if you want to configure backup everything. So within this wizard, we'll be able to configure for. So if you have Azure, so as I said earlier, if you have a now then only you'll be able to create resources. But the best practice is all about creating a resource group, as you could see earlier. So we'll see the resource group. So this is how the resource groups is going to be created. So you can create any number of resource groups based on the requirement. So create test, and you'll be able to specify. So that is the logical compartment. Logically, you can group the resources. So if you go to resource groups here, I will show you how my resources are there. So app functions. So if you see number of resources, there's a virtual machine, the public IP, network security group, VNet, network interface card, disk, everything is within this. So when I'm going to delete a resource group, I can easily delete, so the entire thing will be deleted. So you'll be able to move to another subscription, to another resource group is easy rather moving individual components. That's where the flexibility comes, like I mean, in terms of consolidating and scoping within one logical compartment. Uh, like Otherwise, we have another flexibility of giving access to a resource group rather giving access to individual resources. If you want to group and give it to a group, then that will be inherited to all the resources. So that way will also be helpful. So likewise, you can learn the best approaches and the fine-tuned method of handling the cloud via 104. So where they'll be explicitly talking about this role-based access, privilege identity management, so on and so forth. And again, when it comes to management groups, because if you have one subscription underneath the subscription, if you have resource groups, yes, you'll be able to work. But what if you have an enterprise grade a tenant where there are multiple subscriptions, and if you want to form a hierarchy like a business unit wise a segregation, uh, then you will be able to you know group all the subscriptions under one management group, which will be a child group. So you'll be able to create that here, so that management group will have multiple subscriptions. So if you take a resource group will be having multiple resources. But if you want to have multiple subscriptions into one compartment, there is going to be a management group. The importance of having that multiple subscription is to have the access control, Azure policies, and again the role base, to be managed effectively. Because if there are multiple subscriptions to be managed by one single team or one division, then you will be able to create here. And likewise, the policy is the other approach. So I'm just picking some high level the topics, where you will be mostly working. But in terms of understanding that you should be having that foundational the aspects learned. But the frequently you will be working on these when you are handling an Azure environment, either as a fundamental learned individual or else an administrator. So those are the things I wanted to highlight under the demonstration, and particularly a navigation or a quick walkthrough. But important thing is, to continue our learning when it comes to the Azure Charts is the one-stop shop, I would say, which will be giving I mean, the easiest aspect of understanding the highlights of all the learning, and to keep you up to date as well. So I'll quickly show this the captured the screenshots, but definitely I will take you to the portal as well. In the interest of time, I'll complete the slide and we'll move into uh, the portal as well, which is a dedicated portal, and Microsoft has invested a lot in terms of maintaining this up to date and again consolidating all the services. If you see the region scope, there is one area we can click and understand all the regions. So it is not just to understand what the regions are in terms of uh, the global the footprint where the Microsoft Azure is available. But again, you will be able to see the number of AZs. If you see the highlight UK South, it has three AZ. AZ stands for availability zones. Within the UK South, there are three availability zones. One availability zone means multiple data centers interconnected. So you can understand that as well from this. So it will be easy, which region has multiple AZs, which region does not have multiple ACs, but only one. So where you can decide, like I don't want to go ahead with the region A where there are no multiple ACs, but I need to look something else where the multiple AC will cater the high availability and the availability for your infrastructure. So I mean, to decide that these factors matter a lot, like when you learn and when you get that understanding. So likewise, to see the service health, where the um, drawback and where the outage currently exists in terms of the cloud, because it's again a data center managed by somebody, but yet you've been getting with the best SLA provided by Microsoft. So that visibility is also there in. And when it comes to the learning explorer is the important thing, because you have uh, a chart view given by the Azure, the charts portal, where you'll be able to simply click on that and understand the documentations where they are, and again, what's new in terms of that particular service, and what are the preview things, and what are the expiry that that particular service has hit as of that moment. Because there are some services you would have not even come across in terms of learning, that would have been there for some time, and now it's expired. So likewise, you'll be able to get the entire view spectrum when it comes to the services in Azure. Before jumping into the exam discounts, and I will show you that portal. Uh, Here we have. So I was talking about chart. So welcome to Azure Chart. So if you see here updates, Azure heat map, and update queues, you'll be able to see particularly the pricing offering, region and data centers for uh, priority, never to old. All will try to understand something simple. Okay, when it comes to learning, so the learning, the study map is there. So let's take the study map. And if it is a virtual machine, it will give, okay, I mean, uh, these are the services interconnected with the virtual machines. So likewise, we'll be able to pick the service and learn. This is one aspect. So you can clear the selection and you can go for the Learning Explorer, which will be the fundamental one. And let's say Azure Migrate. So what are the services that can be associated with Azure Migrate? And Azure Migrate for the TCO, Azure Migrate for the business case justification, and Azure Migrate for accelerating your cloud migration, because there's a service given by Microsoft for migrating your on-premises into cloud. So in that context, what are the services which can be associated with Azure Migrate? And those are the learning. So you can easily pick, okay, I'm going to learn Azure Migrate, and Azure Migrate is something important for my certification. I should be having an understanding of app services, Key Vault, Spring, something optional, I would say, and again the SQL DB, site recovery, and the DB migration. So almost one, two, three, and four. Four important, because Key Vault is something important in terms of setting this up. Those are the services associated, and these are app service VM. And if you say the VM, which one is it, will can be migrated from Azure to another subscription, or Azure to another platform like VMware or something. So those are supported in terms of working with the Azure Migrate. And SLAs to understand, if you see average and the median value is there, so you'll be able to explore this. The define SL is there, so which has 100%, which has 99.99, under which term. So you'll be able to see, if you just scroll, you'll be able to see the last update on March 21. After that, there is nothing. So you can filter out, okay, which services has the latest updates. So I'll spend more time to be up to date. Whatever it has, the past update where the things have not been updated for a long time, that means highly unlikely it will be updated very often, but we'll be able to park those. That's again the filter, because there are plenty of services, so we need to be specific for a set of services. Then you'll be able to move easily. Likewise, we will be able to go to the solutions, regions, outcome, and the timetable, deprecation board. So deprecation board will give the services that are deprecated, so you'll be able to see the very older one, and Q1, what's going to happen for these. So you'll be able to, so if you just go to this one, target deprecation date is going to, Power BI embedded is going to be deprecated on the 1st March, and which will be impacted and the announcement when has been made. So if you are going to experience something, a sort of an outage or so, a lack of functionality, so come to this and understand whether it is undergoing any end of life. So that's why this has been used in my context most of the time. But again, I would recommend that way when it comes to the learning as well. So the chart, again, something important to have the refreshing. Before we wind up, as I committed, so at the beginning, I mentioned like to have your Outlook account created for accessing all the modules when it comes to learning, and maintain the same, because Microsoft, um, by monthly or every quarter, if I'm not mistaken, they enable this cloud skill challenge. This is 30 days, or sometime it long lasts for 60 days. The challenge will be there. When you go to that URL, you will be able to. I also, I think I have opened that URL as well. You will be able to see all these modules. Let's say AZ 900, AZ 104, AZ 204. Everything is there. So you can be quick in terms of becoming the top in the leaderboard when it comes to that challenge. If you have done the due diligence, and if you have done the learning quite early, that's why I'm telling to make use your Outlook account and complete the modules as much as possible. So you will, when you log into that, your earned points will be utilized to keep your level of completion within the leaderboard. So that's important, to complete as much as possible. Or else within the challenge itself, you can start from the scratch and move forward if you're using a different email there. So 30 days challenge. So once you finish, if you see the screenshot, they mention that there is a discounted certifications exams are there. You will have a chance to stand for a 50% off. So that's what important thing is when it comes to this. So here, this is something upon redeeming those coupons. So you'll be able to see the voucher code and you'll be able to see the expiration date. That is one thing where you'll be still exploring your self learning, and you will be expediting with whatever the learnings you have, and you will be able to stand for a chance. The other approach is the virtual day events. Keep an eye every time when you go to the Microsoft virtual training days. You will be able to see some schedules that Microsoft has made already, focusing the domain, I mean the certifications, like AI fundamentals. If you see the screenshot, you can see the AI fundamentals. And for the SAP on Azure, likewise, they will be having for the Azure Virtual Day for the Azure Fundamentals, or AZ 104. When it comes to this Azure Fundamental, that will be for 2 days. Each day it will be 1 hour, 1.5 hours, if I'm not mistaken. So if you attend 2 days without failing, so the email that you have used, that you're going to use for subscribing for that event, will be notified with a link to request a coupon, which will again be 50%, and that you can use for your certifications, because cost per se, it will be like 55 USDs, but yet in that context, I can save half of that when you have that coupon achieved from any of these initiatives that Microsoft has introduced so far. Recap of the session
Rizmi,
highlights. Yes.
just to interrupt you, are we taking an Q&A session at the end of this, or you want to
Yes.
answer the questions as you go by?
We'll be taking the Q&A at the end, because
Okay.
during that I'll be able to share the links as well to the chat, if or else I'll be sharing with you, so we'll be able to move into the chat, so the audience can make use of those.
Okay. Nice.
This is the final slide. Yeah, welcome. And this is all about the recap of the session. So I understand it's a very a timely topic with the two approaches of proceeding with the Microsoft certifications. So starting with the AZ 900, which is the fundamentals, and these are the domain areas, and you will be having the accreditation the fundamentals. But if with the 900, I would always recommend move into the role base, which is going to be the 104 in our case, the next immediate step out from the fundamental. So you'll be able to, go through all the domain areas via the learning. And in this also, I have listed all these URLs separately, the domain areas. For that, the corresponding video links. So we'll be able to, share with you all. So you'll be able to make use of those and, get the maximum out of it to expedite your learning and to be more comfortable. Hope it was informative, and let me take you to the portal here. This is something I wanted to show this is the 30 days learning experience and the Microsoft the Cloud Skill Challenge, and this is the virtual day. You can see like uh, for the 365 dynamics they have, and likewise if you go bottom and yeah, I think virtual training the fundamental, yes. So the second 12th February in this time zone, if it is appropriate, so, and if you are comfortable to register and attend, you will be able to subscribe to that. So likewise, you can fill it here. Here, if you see after completing the training, you will be eligible to take one exam at 50% of the exam price if you already have a Microsoft Learning account. So that's what I said, use the Microsoft Learn account always, to be eligible as well. So this is the course I was talking about. Say it's free tutorial, enroll for this, and these are the fundamental learning. Yes, let me go to the chat and understand what the questions are. Okay, shall I go to the Q&A?
Yeah. So Fayaz is asking, BitLocker will also under services or server related?
It's server related, but when it comes to the encryptions, if you want to explicitly use as a key-based approach, Azure Key Vault can definitely be using there. I will show you in the interest of time, like when it comes to disk uh, encryption set is something like, we can be forming the concept of the BitLocker here, because here it gives an option to associate the key and make it make it encryption key set, which we can use to encrypt the disks for a VM. So if you want to use externally Azure Key Vault with the proper encryption, the mechanism, you have to have the disk encryption set. Other than that, the other approach is going to be within the Windows or Windows 10 or 11, or is the Windows Server spec, which will be, the similar approach that you have, like when you've been doing in your in your laptop, or there is any servers that you have been handling, physically. The same approach will be applied, but just the virtualization layer will be different. But other than that, you'll be able to work within the Windows. Uh, when it comes to the BitLocker, the application specific, or else if you want to encrypt externally, so this is the other approach. What's next? Hope it was clear, Faiz.
So the next question is from Arshad. How can I know how to go for this challenge? I think he's referring to the learning challenge, which is discounted with me.
Yes, this is the URL. So I would say, okay, let's put it to the chat. So if you have an Outlook account, use the same. Otherwise, you can create and subscribe. Where if you go down, as of now, Microsoft has not enabled this because now the challenge is in offline. But when they enable, there will be a due date, and again the time frame in between that validity exists. So you'll be able to access any of these courses. If you see DevOps engineering, build apps, virtual desktop fundamentals, and developer, and whenever Microsoft enables, then they will be listing all the certifications, and you can click on this, go through the learning. In the sense, it's, if I simply click, I don't think it will work at the moment, but yet I'll give a try. So if I click Azure Network Engineer, it will open the self-paced learning. So you can, if you have signed in, continue the course. So you'll be able to complete. You'll have 100 minutes to complete this assessment. So you'll be able to complete the entire thing here. So the continue the course, you'll be able to get started and continue everything in terms of learning this. So if you do so, you will be entitled being the first in that leaderboard or in any appropriate the ranking, but yet within that the time frame that Microsoft allows.
Thanks,
I hope.
Rizmi. And one of our Digi Legends have a question for you. In Azure, for virtual machines, is it possible to connect to the console view on hardware level without relying only on RDP SSH, like a scenario where you will have to do some configuration before you can connect the VM to the internet, or a scenario where you have made a configuration error and the network is not reachable. Can we see the current status of the VM screen? Thanks. I think this is Mutaz.
That's perfect. So if I have correctly understood the questions, like let's assume that we have a VM created, but yet we have not published or exposed to the internet because, as a matter of fact, the flexible way of accessing a VM via the RDP. But if it is not the case, and if you have not set up, let's say, the network security groups, that's one aspect where the things can fail very often. But we have an option to, uh, here we get an option to access via the console. I have an option here to one is we can be using the run command. Even if you have a public IP associated or not, you still be able to run this command or any PowerShells or anything to be done even before I'll start the VM. So that's good in a way. If it happens in an instant times, we'll be able to see that as well. That's one approach. And again, you will be able to see, let's say, if it is a Linux VM or there's a console view comes in. So you'll be able to see that the current state of the VM without even, trying with another public IP or doing further um, you know the fine tuning to save the time or to do more troubleshooting. We can keep some timing, but again, in terms of having access within the portal but not via the public IP. So those are the two approaches I would suggest. One is the run command when it comes to the Windows, in order to interact the VM, and the other approach will be there will be a serial console access, same like you have the VM running on top of a hypervisor, but yet within the hypervisor wizard will be able to access that VM. So that is again something that you can explore and get it. But those, if you see the Connect and the Bastion, the Bastion is a patch service. Instead of having multiple VMs, you can subscribe to this service and access your private VM via this. But before going to this extent, the the fundamental way of accessing that VM within this wizard before it gets published or before we fine tune or troubleshoot that the reason for not accessible via the public will be run command will be accessibly explicitly useful, or else we'll be able to go for the serial access. When the VM comes up, we'll be able to see the serial console access, which will be helpful for accessing that VM. I hope it was helpful to understand that question.
Yeah, he says you have answered his question.
Thank you.
And we have a question from Sajeev Nath. Just wanted to know, Rizmi, do we need to go through all the Azure services while preparing for AZ 900 exam?
Not really. If you see the exam module, the domain areas, I would say, let's take to AZ 900 learning path. Um, so you have this Azure Fundamentals. So what Microsoft expects is to have a thorough understanding on the compute, networking, and the storage. So they're not talking about this AI. They are not talking about the other SaaS or the PaaS or any. If you take the Intra ID, earlier it was called the Azure ID. Even Intra ID specific, the enhanced B2C or that level of a learning will not be expected. Infrastructure and its management, database and its management, and the software development. So in the software is just to understand once a VM is there. But other than that, the core infrastructure will be the compute network and the storage. So if you finish these the course modules that they have defined will be sufficient to sit for the exam even without a dump. I give the assurance, if you learn these materials, and if you go through this course once, if you see the content also, it's hopefully I'll be able to see the course contents. Yeah, see, yes. See, he's trying to cover fundamental. Then it has a compute benefit and the cloud service type, then Azure architecture and the services, how to access from the portal or from the shell, other components incorporating those core services with, and again the architectural, the architecture of the service, like how it is there with the single point of failure or with the multiple, uh, the the availability zones or availability set base, so on and so forth. So those are the core learnings, and you will be tested not the hands-on aspect, but the know-how of the service and the availability. Do you have that understanding whether it is an availability or a disaster recovery, something like that?
I think you just answered the next question. Ramesh is asking if you can give an example question. Oh, actually, no. If you can give an example question of AZ900 and how it tests the learning outcomes.
Okay, so in that case, launch. Okay, I think this will help when it comes to the experiencing exam sandbox. This will give you the experience how that exam the question will look like, because if you want to know the exact questions, I don't think it will be a static, because time to time Microsoft shuffles, like from the pool of questions that they have. So when you sit, you will be having a filtered output, but not the same will be for the other person who's going to sit even the next 1 hour or 2 hours, but it will be different. But that will be different in terms of shuffling, but sometimes you'll be finding the same questions in multiple places. But to understand, the how that the sandbox, how the exam experience will be. So the best way is to get that hands-on via this exam sandboxing, which is again working for many are not the role base, but yet we'll be able to leverage the same for the uh, AC900. If you see now, you see the time it remains. Similarly, there will be 40 to 60 minutes, 1 hour approximately, will be there, so you can agree and move forward. So, and you'll be able to see the list of questions, and there'll be some sample questions also here, if I'm not mistaken. So when you continue, you'll be able to see the sample questions as well. And let's let this page to be refreshed. Okay. I think this is something that you really wanted to understand, like how that question format comes when it comes to the exam, because we will be doing the learning via this here. If you see this unboxing, so they will give the instructions. Uh, okay, and when it comes to the exam format, case studies, weaving, as I said earlier, there'll be a case study in 104. And what are the instructions? And those are the how logistics you should be having ready. Then you can move into the next phase, and 8 hours total. Two questions. Let's see whether they have put a realistic one or just a dummy one here. If you say, but it's a dummy one, I'm sorry. But yet, when you have the learning here, he will be explaining in that the questions how. Oh, I mean, if there are sample questions, but again, it will be coming in this format. See, you'll be able to simply choose, and or you can review later, leave your feedback. Make sure that you review. If you review later, you'll be having a chance at least before ending. You'll be able to go through those, and uh, pick the appropriate one. So if you were not confident the time you were choosing, so that's how you'll be handling that examinations throughout the questions. Did I answer to you?
Right. Ramesh, if you're here, did he answer your question? Yeah, he puts thumbs
Uh,
up.
okay, thank you.
So is it
And
possible
last
to,
one. Yeah, the last one, like you can get
we,
50% off if you finish the two sessions, either one. Because if you see this, uh, if you see Microsoft Events, there is one approach of becoming eligible to stand for 50%. Challenge is another approach where you can timely learn and stand for an opportunity, because this is very time bound, like when it comes to the Azure virtual training day, which is a fundamental. So those are uh, independently defined, so you can choose either way to become eligible for a 50% off.
and Rizmi, someone is asking, Ahmed, is it possible to link my current Gmail account with a Microsoft account to get the benefits you just explained to us?
Yes, there are options where you can be subscribe, where you can. use your Gmail or even your corporate email address. Because once it is done, you will be registered as a guest user there, and you will be having the OTP, and you can subscribe. But when it comes to the Outlook, it will be convenient because it will be linked to your Microsoft the transcript and your learning portal, as well as for the certifications when it comes to scheduling, so on and so forth. But yet uh, there is an option to subscribe your Gmail as well, because which will become the secondary when it comes to the primary of the Outlook. But otherwise, you can switch in between, because there's options. In my context, if you see the registration and everything happens on top of the live, but yet my confirmations and the exams are scheduled and the trainings are happening on top of my Gmail, so that works.
Right. And another question, did Microsoft provide vouchers as a key offering early on? And now are they offering a 50% discount to the registered email for the event?
Mm, yes, that's the commitment they expect, because if I give you a little bit of the background how and what interested them to change this policy, because Microsoft has other initiatives like for the corporates. If you're working for MSP, because we know the term of MSP because our Digi Legends have been working for many not MSPs. So when it comes to MSP, there is a credential, a call ESI, Enterprise Skills Initiative, given by Microsoft for the commitment that they have made for the cloud, the growth, and again the services that they have been doing for the external clients. When it becomes ESI is having the learning the path for the individuals, those who are working for that organization. So those were having 100% waive off for all the any exams of Azure or any exams of cloud, I would say, that used to be 100% off. Microsoft, because later realized that whoever scheduled the exams, they did not timely sit, or they did not timely leverage that benefit. So the scheduling, because it took some effort, and again uh, the the involvement of Microsoft's the proctoring panel, but our people did not timely attend. So those were I mean misused in a context. But Microsoft later realized we should be having the commitment. Okay, register for an event, so we know the headcount who have registered and who are, but there won't be, a closely monitoring whether you are active in that session. But it's good always, to be active and understand that concept, because they'll be talking the fresh topics, not the recorded sessions. So you'll be able to, interact and get the learning. But if you have registered successfully using an email address, so if you have attended those 2 days, like, joining that meeting, at least one or two chats, and you have shown your interaction, and you get rid of it, but your 2 days you have represented, and you will be able to stand for the chance. That's where the commitment is expected. But other than that, no any hard commitment, like you have to complete and show the progress, nothing of such. But still you will have to provide your email address to become an individual. You are not a robot, like, but an individual of exact those who's really looking for a certification, the aid of a finance.
Thanks, Rizmi. And one final question. So, the voucher system is now replaced by 50% discount, or I mean, somebody's asking, is there any voucher for AZ104 certification? I believe that
I
is replaced by the discount, isn't it?
Yes, the voucher early it was 100%, but the voucher of a 50% is going to be the discount Microsoft has associated. But mostly you will be getting the coupon. I would say this 50% off via the challenge, 30 days challenge. But mainly for the others, like the fundamentals and the other foundational exams, and you will be getting the event based via that Microsoft events. So you can time to check both. But when you go to this, let's say, I'll take you to the challenge one. If this is the case, yes, challenge. Let's say 30 days challenge. If you come across the 104, that you are lucky enough, because you can see everything. But for the time being, there is no 104. But when Microsoft releases, you will be able to see, because if you see this 204 is also there, which is the developer administrator. Sorry, developer associate. So you can see even the associate for that networking, data, everything. But if you see architect is also there. So for sure there will be one for the 104 as well in this list. So if you come across, click that within that defined time frame for that challenge. If you finish, and you are going to win, or you're going to be eligible for that 50%. But here for the events, make sure hardly unlikely you'll be finding, but for the fundamentals and for the other certifications, you'll be able to give a try and stand for that chance. Was that clear?
I believe you have answered that very clearly, Rizmi.
Thank you.
And I think we have come to the end of questions and answers. So, is there anything that you would like to add and conclude the session, Rizmi?
Yeah, gladly. So, thank you very much, and those were wonderful questions. And again, thank you very much for your patience because we had gone beyond 7 and it's about 20 minutes late, but still fine. I hope it would have been informative. And again, some sort of a caliber that would have been created in yours, to start your journey. So I'll be available in LinkedIn and again, in the community aspect to support any individuals. There are other aspects also where you can be, leveraging the credentials of Microsoft and stand for chances. I mean, the learning path and certifications. So hopefully we'll be able to share those where LinkedIn and through the communities and learn those because learning is always important that you're earning. And finally, the wisdom is your custom. So make sure that you are consistent in this. So happy learning and have a blessed time. I don't know what you, Madhu.
Um, yeah, and can we, someone requesting the Udemy course link, if we
Perfect.
can we
Can
put
do.
that in the
Sure.
chat there? Yeah.
Definitely. Sure. I think
And
with the
Rizmi,
course
thank
that
you
was
so much.
welcome.
It was a very, you conducted a very valuable session for our attendees today, and we are now about to conclude the session. So, and we'll be back with another session in March, something similar, but with a different topic.
Sure. Thank you, team, and thank you, everyone. Stay safe and stay blessed.
Cheers, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.